Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside D2Football, along with Justin Palizzi, Chris Ferguson, Tony Nicolette, and Matt Witwicky. I am Chuck Bittner. Tonight, we'll recap the first official Week 0 for D2Football with emphasis on two top 25 matchups that occurred in MIAA country, a couple of matchups that Witt and I were privileged to attend over the weekend. We'll also spotlight a couple of other notable results, and actually, our weekend is still going on. We have two games in process right now. We've got Tuskegee and Johnson C. Smith live on ESPNU. Virginia State and Benedict should have concluded by now. They actually had a weather delay. That game is actually just resuming as we go to air here. So we'll see if we can get you some updates on those games as well. And then we'll look ahead to the first full week of the season, week 1. Coming up, we'll do the undercard segment where we'll spotlight a couple of games. We're not necessarily going to pick those games, but we'll talk about them, see what's interesting, and then we'll go into our Super 7 segment. So it'll probably be a short and tidy show because some of us are a little tired from a pretty busy weekend. Witt, I don't know about you, but I had a wonderful time this past weekend, but I am a little gassed. I'm kind of running empty, but it was well worth it. Do you want to go ahead and kind of lay the land for what the weekend was like for you and myself out in MIAA country?
Yeah, let's go ahead and kind of, pull up the start here, Chuck. This is back on Thursday. And for all those who couldn't connect the dots, that's Chuck and I in the bottom right corner of the picture there with our guy Rod, who does photography for us for D2. And, getting out there in Maryville, and I would say a solid crowd, not a wow crowd, kind of a late arriving crowd for the game there with, the Bearcats and Mavericks, but could not wait to start the season with a big playoff feeling type contest, Chuck. You flew in, I drove in, and we met and took it from there and shared a sideline. I enjoyed that, and Chuck, tell everybody a little bit about what's going on with the helmet and the sticker that we're talking about here.
Well, first of all, everybody should know Witt thought it would be really funny if he stood on a box to make me look a lot shorter than I really am. So that wasn't.
That's exactly what happened.
That was totally unnecessary. But one of the highlights of the weekend for us, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but obviously we got to see Brandon. Both of us got to spend some time with him, see how he's doing, just have really good quality time with him. The sticker that you see on the back of the green Bearcat helmet there is in tribute to Brandon. I know it's a little difficult to see the initials there, but his initials are on that circular sticker with the D2 logo. Both teams wore that decal on the back of their helmet to support Brandon and raise awareness for him and acknowledge all the contributions that he's made to D2. So we knew this was going to happen. Witt, we were told ahead of time. We knew that both teams were going to do this, but it was kind of emotional to see it on the helmets.
Totally.
When we picked up our credentials in the envelope with the credentials, they had put a couple of the stickers in there. And when, I kind of put that sticker in my hand and really got to look at it. It was an emotional feeling, and Brandon was quite overwhelmed. He didn't know about it until Friday. You and Bob actually met him earlier in the day and actually showed him the sticker, and he didn't know about it. And he was very moved by that. He's been moved by a lot of kind gestures that that have been shown to him, and all the kindness that's been shown to him and his family. But he was very moved by this.
It was something. And then for him to get a kind of chance for that to all soak in, I think he was a little overwhelmed, and in a good way. Absolutely.
Yeah. But it was a great time, Witt. Maryville was, I had been there before. I had seen a game there, but it was a really nice day. A little warm, but a really nice day there.
What do you mean a little warm?
Well, when you carry some of the extra burden that you do, it's a little harder, but I thought it was actually
roast. We're 5 minutes in.
I thought it was pretty pleasant. It was a really nice day, and obviously to be there to support a matchup like this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. We're standing out there taking a photo, and it's 94 degrees out, and on the sideline, kind of warm. I was at halftime. I was pretty okay going up to the press box in the air conditioning. Matter of fact, I was considering spending the entire second half up there. But no, Chuck, let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit at some of the action that we got from that contest and between the Mavs and Bearcats. And As you can see here, a whiteout being done by Northwest, and Mankato kind of got out to a quick start. Ground and pound, first possession. Hayden Eckern scores, and then the Mavs go for two. A little bit of a trick play, swinging gate, and we're up 8-0 all of a sudden. Rich Wright in the first half was not thrilled with what he was seeing from his squad. They were having a hard time stopping the Mavs running game up front. You can see Eckern once again running in for the score. He ran in for 4 of them on this day. The Bearcats having trouble offense sputtering. They go out here, try and get wide, and all of a sudden lose the football on probably their best scoring chance of the first half. And all of a sudden, we're looking at 22-0 halftime score. Mavs. They got it up to 29-0. And then the Bearcats were able to hit a deep shot here and had about a 6 or 7 minute stretch where all of a sudden they got themselves back in the game. But then the Mavs kind of slammed the door shut on a long drive that took out the time and also, extended their lead to 2 scores. Chuck, I was frankly shocked by the ability for Mankato to be able to run it on them for over 200 yards in what we were kind of characterizing as a 2-minute drill of ground and pound that we were seeing in the first half. They were doing like a tempo ground and pound, which is something to behold, especially considering how historically good the Bearcats have been against the ground game of other teams.
Yeah, I thought the rushing performances on both sides was really the story of the game. It was very surprising. The way Mankato was really able to control the entire game with their rushing attack was very impressive, but also the fact that they just never let Northwest Missouri really establish a run or really anything offensively. The Bearcats, by the end of the game, they had pulled up some stats, and it didn't look terrible, but Mankato's defense really had them in control for most of the game. And I thought that was really a big part of it as well. They never let Northwest establish anything. And the other thing that really stood out, Witt, as we watched this game, talking about Mankato going a little bit tempo with their rushing attack, Northwest had a lot of trouble with getting the right personnel on the field. They had some confusion with formations,
Right.
Some struggles with their substitutions. They really struggled with that throughout the entire first half. Now, they did get that together a little bit and did better in the second half, but that was a really big hole that they put themselves in. And, when you look at the stats, Witt, I think that this makes it look a little bit better for Northwest Missouri. Frankly, I think this game was more one-sided than what you see on paper there. This was a beatdown for most of the game. Mankato made a series of mistakes that frankly almost cost him the game. It started to go sideways really, really badly and really quickly, and it could have snowballed so far that it became a loss. But without Minnesota State making a whole series of mistakes, Northwest Missouri does not get back into this game at all. It started with the bad snap on a punt that resulted in safety. Northwest's first points. They get their first touchdown because Minnesota State was about to get off the field. They get a dead ball personal foul that extends the drive. And it just kept going on and on for about 6 or 7 minutes. But outside of that window of time where the Mavs were just really shooting themselves in the foot, Witt, this was their game from start to finish.
Yeah, it was. And, I think there's kind of 2 sides to this now, Chuck, coming out of this. How good is Mankato? Is this vintage Mankato that we saw back when they were making trips to the championship? And then on the flip side, is Northwest's offense going to be this challenged this season? Because they were really having trouble establishing something. Everything they got was via big play. So that's not really sustainable. So I think that's kind of what people walk away with this as, going, okay, how are they going to be going forward? So the Bearcats, I don't know if anyone else in the MIAA is going to quite be able to do what Mankato did in terms of the style that they had up front with the size they have and everything else. But we'll have to see. But I'm sure, this window of time that Rich Wright and staff are going to have, I think they're really going to have to get back up on the horse here and get after Kearney in their next contest.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And as far as Minnesota State, if this was kind of a matter of maybe Northwest is just not there this year? Does that inflate the value of Minnesota State? And I don't think that's the case, but if so, we'll find out right away because they've got Bemidji and Wayne State coming up, I believe, in the next couple of weeks. So it doesn't
absolutely.
It doesn't get easy for them. So
well, Chuck, let's take a look at the other location we were at, Pitt State, and go ahead and kind of look a little bit at that. And did I even jump ahead one, Chuck, on us there? I think I did. So before the game begins at Pitt State, since everyone's always concerned about my travels, there I am at Chicken Annie's, going ahead and, it was highly recommended, so I had to go try it out. Very good. I didn't even overdo it or anything. I was able to walk around comfortably during the game. There's Chuck and I and the gorilla. That might have been my idea. Then there we are with Rob and Sandy from Ferris State, who graciously had us on at half, and I was very pleased with the fact that they allowed us to talk a little bit about our guy Brandon and his situation as well, and also promote our show a little bit. And the fact that it was cooler up there and they had cold water up there, I was all for it, Chuck.
It was very gracious of them to invite us into the booth. Of course, they didn't have to do that, but further, as you said, very gracious that they didn't just talk to us about Ferris State. They didn't just talk to us about their game. What's most interesting to their audience, they allowed us to talk about Brandon and kind of celebrate D2 and everything we do here. So that was very personally meaningful to us for sure.
Yeah, and if I was them, I'm not sure if I would be wanting to talk about Ferris State at halftime either with one first down.
Well, it was a little bit of a different story at the half. It was a 3-point game at that point, but things. But
so then there's a shot for full house, as you can see there on both sides. Really, really lively environment and everything else that you can see there. That was tremendous, Chuck. This was next level for me with regard to D2 stuff. So I was loving every bit of this, and really a lot of good action with everything there. And we're going to kind of segue from that right on into watching some of the highlights of this one, with Ferris coming on into the jungle to go ahead and go ahead and play the Gorillas. Everybody was pretty hyped before the game. Coach Anise kind of did a QB1B and went with Trinidad Chambliss in this one. Didn't see a lot of Gulker in this one. Didn't see anything that would suggest that he was hurt or anything like that. It just seemed like the decision they were making that maybe thought that it was going to give them more success. With that, Gulker comes in second quarter, gets the best play they had from scrimmage, and then fumbles. So things were not going the way of Ferris during a pretty good stretch of this one. Then you go ahead and you see William Huggins, their new tight end, 6'7", transfer from KU. He's a big fella. A lot of field goals in this one. If you were a field goal person, Chuck, this was your jam. So, but very, very good defense being played by Pitt State, but at the same time, plenty of self-inflicted wounds, Chuck, by Ferris State along the way, wouldn't you say?
Well, I feel like this is one of those games where the story is kind of more about the team that didn't perform as well as we expected to, rather than maybe the team that performed a little bit better than we expected to. And that's a little unfair to Pitt State because they played a really, really good game.
They did.
They didn't make a lot of mistakes. They had a good game plan. They stuck to their game plan. They made good adjustments, and they frustrated and infuriated an offense that has been one of the most dynamic and explosive in Division II for the last, how many years? Almost a decade or so.
Right.
So just a really good performance that I want to make sure that I make that point and talk about how impressed we were with Pittsburgh State and how well they played. Because on the other side of the ball, with Ferris not performing up to the level, Ferris having 3 points on the board that's a story in itself. And I think that's kind of where most of the storylines tend to go. The game plan confused me a little bit, Whit. I can get my mind around why the coaching staff might have thought that the things they do really well with Carson Gulker might not work so well against Pittsburgh State and that really good linebacking core that they have. I can certainly understand that, and going with Chambliss, you can see why maybe they thought that gave them a better chance, but that wasn't working.
No.
If three drives into the game, we could see this is not working. And they really didn't go away from that. And Gulker really didn't have a lot of snaps, Whit. And
Right.
I don't know how you play a game of this magnitude against a team of that quality and keep a player like Carson Gulker on the bench for almost the entire game. If there's an injury there that we don't know about, and obviously Ferris would guard that very closely if that was the case, but it didn't look that way. If this was just the game plan, I don't really understand why they didn't go back to putting Gulker in there and just see if they can make something happen. Of course, once they did put him in, I think 4th or 5th series, he had a really good run and he fumbled the ball. So maybe that has something to do with it. But it just never clicked for him. One of the worst offensive performances we've seen for the Bulldogs, and they really kind of took it on the chin.
Well, and the two things that really stood out to me was the amount of false starts they had. It just seemed like it was always happening, and then you add to that the interception early, then another interception right before half. 2 fumbles. One was on a kickoff deep in their own territory that led to the touchdown. I thought, to a certain extent, Pitt State just kept a steady hand while Ferris State was making a lot of mistakes, and they did not make many mistakes. They converted with field goals. They got the touchdown when they needed to. I thought Chad Dotson did a nice job of going ahead and doing some of the RPO stuff and going ahead and getting rid of that football very quickly and crisply. I thought that they played the exact game they needed to there and ended up winning by 2 scores as a result.
Yeah, our friend Bob Beblin was with us at this game, so he's obviously seen a lot of D2 football over the years as well. He said to both of us at one point late in the second half, he's like, Pitt State's running Ferris State stuff better than Ferris State's running it. And I think that was pretty spot on with the way they were managing their offense and kind of playing within themselves and distributing the ball, making Ferris run to the ball. We normally see the Bulldogs have a speed advantage in those types of matchups, and I wasn't seeing that on Saturday night.
Yeah, it was kind of wild in that respect. And, I chatted with Coach Anise after the game, and I got the impression that he was pretty okay with the fact that they were still in the ball game at halftime in spite of how poorly they had played. And then by the time the second half got going and Pitt State kept defending well, not letting them get anything going. Once Pitt State scored that touchdown, I mean, you said it to me, Chuck, you kind of like, I think this one might be over. And you were right.
Yeah. And also, Whit, just to kind of close this out, really want to circle back to just the game day environment there. This was a bucket list venue for me. I have been to Pitt State before, but not for a game day. This was a bucket list for me. It has been for almost 20 years. Lived up to any expectations that I had. Everybody who's ever been there told me you'll love it. It's awesome. It's so perfect for D2. It was all of those things that exceeded all my expectations. Thank you to everyone that I met who came over and introduced themselves. There were a lot of people that said hello and said they watched the show. Thank you. Even though a lot of those interactions were very brief, they're very meaningful to me. Really enjoyed that. And I hope I get to go back again soon.
Absolutely. Well, Chuck, let's go ahead and kind of take a look at some of the other action that we had this weekend. That was pretty noteworthy. We had Angelo State going on into Fort Hays State. Chuck, if my memory serves me right, they're supposed to play that one Thursday night. What happened?
Oh, do you know how tempting it was to cancel the plans I had on Friday and just bail on my friends and make the drive out further west in Kansas to go see this game? 10 years ago, I absolutely would have done that. As I've gotten a little bit older, I know I need to have friends in my life. So I stuck to the plans that I had for Friday, but it was really tempting to do this. Yes, this was supposed to be a Thursday night. They had some weather, some really hard rain, some lightning. So I actually bumped this to Friday afternoon. I don't remember where we landed on the picks for this game, Witt, but I think we were fairly evenly split on this, which
Let
was
me see.
I think that was a pretty fair assessment. I think we saw this pretty evenly. I think my comment was I'm buying into Fort Hays. I think they've really got something, and this was a very good win for them. I think it's going to be really tough now, for Angela. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but they have to go back to Kansas again this weekend and play Emporia. So that's going to be a tough assignment, but this is a really good win for Fort Hays.
Yeah, Fort Hays with 4 sacks in this one, only 200 yards allowed, and the Rams were not able to get things going really with either quarterback, and that's something that I think we all kind of had a concern with was who's Angelo State going to roll out there, how well they're going to perform, and things like that, and they're going to get a second chance at it, just like you mentioned here. Now, as we go ahead and we kind of look at the rest of the slate, Ferg, I'm going to call on you for a moment here. We have Albany State, who we're expecting to be a conference champ, along with Valdosta State. Last year, Ferg, if my memory serves me right, this is a pretty darn close ball game. This one this weekend wasn't a close ball game.
No. And that's the evolution of Valdosta right now. I mean, when they got better over the course of last season, they just sort of picked up where they left off. They scored in the first 3 possessions and put Albany in the hole very quickly, and after that, it was just very tough. The first points that Albany got was those 3 points that you see there late in the second quarter. You can't really do that when you're already down 3 touchdowns, and that's exactly what happened there. So, wasn't necessarily a bad offensive output for Albany. Got over 300 yards of offense, but when you're going to get to an offense like Valdosta's got going on, you really got to put touchdowns on the board just to keep up.
Right. Kind of moving along here, Ferg, we have Wingate and UNC Pembroke. And guys, for what it's worth, we were split on this game. I admit I might have gotten it wrong. Ferg, heck, you might have gotten it wrong too. But Ferg, how did things turn out here?
Yeah, I got this one wrong. And I mean, the fact that it was close tells you everything you need to know, right? Yep. And I think this was kind of like what you mentioned earlier. It's a little bit less about Wingate and a little bit more about Pembroke and what Pembroke didn't do. Because Wingate's just one of those really steady clubs, and they showed that here. Man, Pembroke, this was all special teams going in the wrong direction. Missed PAT on their first touchdown. Couldn't convert on a 2-point conversion, missed field goal, went 1 for 10 on third and fourth down combined. There was just a lot left on the field for Pembroke. And that just shows you what a team like Wingate, with the amount of consistency that they have had over the years, to be able to continue to do what they do and pull it all together in games like this.
Now, Ferg, in our other kind of bigger pick'em game, last we had looked right at Showtime. We were at 23-7, Virginia State, in a game that's in rain delay earlier, but it's still being played. Do you have anything new for us on this one, buddy?
Yeah, so they are in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, 4 minutes left in the game. Score hasn't changed at all. Virginia State has just, sort of came out, and Benedict scored on a kind of a fluke play. They were going to kick a field goal. Field goal was blocked, and they actually were able to pick it up and advance it and run in for a touchdown. So, a little bit of controversy there. But outside of that, it's been Virginia State with haymaker type big plays to get on the board. And you see that right there, 23-7, late in the fourth quarter.
Fair enough. Chuck, we had some other games that were kind of eye-catching along the weekend. What else did you see?
Well, one that really caught my attention was Clark Atlanta beating Fort Valley State. I did not see that one coming. Clark Atlanta had not won a game since October 2022, an 0 for last year. Really, really tough slog, and they thought they'd kind of caught on to something, bringing in Willie Slater, who had so much success at Tuskegee. That didn't work out. Kind of refired the program, and they really got it right this time by pulling in. Help me make sure I get the name right. Is it Teddy Keaton?
Yep.
Okay, want to make sure I got that right. Teddy Keaton, who had been at Allen, was doing a really good job building up that program. Goes down to Clark Atlanta, and boy, talk about immediate impact. And also, again, I've seen some comments off the transfer portal. David Wright, who was the quarterback at Allen with Teddy Keaton, follows his head coach down to Clark Atlanta. Amazing day that he has. That's a name that everybody needs to know. If he can kind of do a little bit better protecting the football this year,
Right.
this is a name we're going to talk about a lot. So as an individual, he's an outstanding performer. But that result for Clark Atlanta, because we expect Fort Valley to always be among that top 3 probably in the SAAC. So, man, what a result for them. That one really stood out to me.
You know what, Justin, let me ask you, in your part of the world, you know a little bit about that Mars Hill program. Mars Hill, Delta State. Yeah. We kind of figured, Coach Poe, I got to be frank, I know you weren't picking with us last week, but we honestly thought that was going to be a really good game. And while I didn't see anything of it, the score didn't give me the impression it was a really good game.
Well, if you watch that game at the half, it was a pretty close game. I mean, it was within a score or so there at the end of the first half. And it was, I felt like both teams got out the gate a little bit slow. They kind of had to get their footing underneath them this year. But when they did, and they came out in the second half, Delta State really separated themselves from Mars Hill. And it was like everything that could have went, not everything that could have went Delta's way, but they got their footing, they got in that rhythm, and they hit offensively, and they had some big stops defensively. Were able to cause some disruption for Mars Hill, and they just couldn't get the rhythm back. And they were able to pull away late. So it was a game that I think I'm not surprised it ended the way it did. I was almost a little surprised that it was where it was at the half.
Right.
But yeah, at the end of the game, I'm not necessarily surprised. I think the depth that Delta State has and kind of where they are as a program it was kind of my thought. I know I didn't pick with y'all last week, but right. I was thinking it was going to be about a 24-point game.
Well, Coach Poe, let me ask you. A lot of us, it's just kind of assumed that Valdosta it's probably their year in the Gulf South. Are we maybe sleeping on Delta a little bit?
I think so. I think they've got a contending piece in this thing too. I think they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder that, hey, it wasn't just Patrick Shegog and that wasn't the reason why we're there. There's other guys here, and I think they have to prove that. And I think they're going to try to prove that. That's going to be their mentality. Hey, it doesn't matter what year it is. We're competitors, we're contenders. And yeah, you're still going to have to go through us to win the conference.
Now, Tony, let me ask you, Michigan Tech goes up to, goes over. They're both up to play at Bemidji. Yeah.
That's well characterized.
Yeah. Good. You're not going to find a whole lot more up.
Right. Yeah.
That barely fits on Ferg's map.
But you kind of look like the dude from up now that I'm looking at you.
Fair enough. So
put a little thing of balloons in your hand and you're ready to rock.
Exactly.
Right, here we go.
You're gonna need more than a few balloons, but all right.
It's Chuck.
Damn.
Mute yourself next time. So Tony, I literally just got done watching that game.
Catch my breath here. Chuck is killing me. All right.
That first half was not a modern art masterpiece.
No, it was not.
Good. I mean, so then all of a sudden the fourth quarter is wild, but it was a 10-3 Michigan Tech lead going into the fourth. Then Bemidji kind of wakes up and realizes, hey, we got to get this going quick, and was able to do just enough to win in overtime. You and I had talked on our GLIAC show that we thought that Michigan Tech had a nice upside. Did you see that kind of upside for them to be able to take them to the wire like this?
Yes, and the thing that I think we were the most concerned with, and we probably didn't spend as much time diving into it on our show last week as we will moving forward, was can Michigan Tech fix their biggest ailment, which over the last couple of years has been an inability to run the football. And they did not fix that in this game.
I know they didn't.
It was pretty weak. It was let me make sure I get this correct. 23 carries for 19 yards. It's going to be hard to win any ball games like that, let alone on the road at a ranked opponent. And yet, you saw Tech's defense play pretty stingily themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, Tech led the bulk of this game. I mean, they took their first possession down and got a touchdown. So they led from midway through the first quarter all the way until the 3:55 mark of the fourth quarter when Bemidji got their first touchdown of the game. So
exactly.
And despite the fact that they couldn't run the ball, the Huskies, I mean, Darius Wills, I think I had 10 for $113. So he was hard to contain. And, both teams kind of punted a lot. So I just think it was one of those early season games where both defenses were ahead of the offenses, and that one could have gone either way. So, I mean, does that kind of edify what we said on the GLIAC show this week, that Tech could be someone you got to keep an eye on? Yeah, I think so, but they got to figure out how to run the ball. And if I'm Bemidji, I'm looking at this going, okay, we survived one, but we got another big one coming up this week. What are we going to do now? I mean, I think they've got more questions to answer than maybe they might have thought coming into week 2 or week 1.
Yeah, I was expecting Bemidji in the spring kind of had their way with Duluth in a spring where they were chucking it everywhere, and I was like, okay, maybe they're not going to miss Brandon Alt so much. Well, this almost looked like a hangover from their playoff where they didn't score for the back half of the game, and they carried that on into this one. So, and guys, we're going to talk about this. Whether it's us, doing our top 25, whether it's everyone trying to assess these teams, it's hard. You try not to have this week 1 overreaction.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Ferris State doesn't all of a sudden stink. Now, the
Fair.
comments will try and suggest otherwise, I'm sure, here momentarily to prove me wrong. But we all have a tendency to want to overreact right now.
Right. Especially with week 0, because not everybody played. So some of the results resonate even more. So you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Witt, you talked about Chicken Annie's a little bit earlier, where you visited with Bob.
That was a nice
yesterday.
segue, Chuck. I like that, by the way.
But now that you're back home in Sioux Falls, if you were craving some wings or some chicken, or maybe even the Boss Hog just for yourself on a Sunday night, where would you go?
Well, I tell you right now, Chuck, I'm the kind of guy who I don't like to be limited to just one entree. If we can go ahead and get a little bit of everything, Berg, don't be acting like you've never done that. So as I take a look at the hot wings right now, they look great, but I don't necessarily want to be limited to just that. I need to have a little bit of pizza while I'm at it. And if we can get a side with, maybe a chicken breast, it's a great night. But you know what would be even cap that night off? Oh, looky here. What do we have? And if you didn't know, breakfast pizza. Look out. Shazam. Okay. So they got breakfast pizza. Then we've got brownie bites with some kind of fancy sauce on there that we don't even need to worry about because all we want is the chocolate. And then below that is a a dessert pizza. It's like a cream cheese or cheesecake with raspberry topping. Ferg, how can all this food be on here and you're not saying a darn thing?
I'm hungry.
Okay, then.
I'm trying not to pass out from hunger.
Exactly. So
Chris is running through his wine list to see what he would pair with it. That's why.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Very true.
Ferg, we don't need anything fancy. A good old RC Cola would hit the spot. Tony, thank you for getting the RC Cola there.
I got it.
My kids had their first one the other day. They love it. But anyway.
Probably the last one, too.
So, yes, if you have a Boss's anywhere near your area, I'm not telling you to order, but this stuff looks pretty darn good.
That breakfast pizza sounds really good. I wonder what the DoorDash fee will be from Sioux Falls to Pennsylvania.
Yep. Maybe we'll have to figure out something.
It'll be so steep that you'll only be able to afford RC Cola.
How do we even segue after that? Oh, we have to talk about football again. Okay.
Yeah, it's just no smooth segue into the next thing. Undercard, games of interest. So we'll do our picks with the Super 7. But as you guys know, we kind of like to warm up to that, give it some body blows, and talk about a few games that we're not necessarily going to pick, but we want everybody to know that these are happening because there's some really interesting matchups in here. Still a lot of out-of-conference play that we're seeing here. Couple that stand out to me, and then we'll kind of throw it around the room here. New Haven and Slippery Rock is very interesting because I don't think that they have much history with each other. They've both been major players in their respective conferences. And New Haven is a team that is not afraid to get out and challenge themselves where they can. Not afraid to go on the road. I saw them at Bowie State a couple of years ago. They will get out there and play some tough games, so looking forward to that. Assumption and Kutztown have a lot of recent history together. I think everybody would probably assume that that's a Kutztown win. Not so fast. Assumption has given Kutztown a lot of fits in the last couple of years.
They should get a lot of dudes back too.
They do, yeah. So keep an eye on that one. I think that can be a very close game. What are you guys looking at on this list?
Don't assume that Kutztown's going to win.
That's right. Ferg, what do you see here that stands out to you?
Oh man. I was looking at some FCS action and I saw the San Diego Cal Poly game and how San Diego actually won that game. So I think that makes it pretty interesting to see if they can continue that, or Central Washington's going to sleep on Central Washington a little bit.
Ferg, I had that same thought. I saw that result and I immediately thought, okay, this one just got real interesting.
Yeah,
Isn't that Mine's old coach that's at San Diego, though?
Brandon Moore, right?
He's not going to be sleeping on Central Washington. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
So guys, what do you think about Missouri Western? Kind of got themselves in a bit of a situation with Northeastern State and came out with a win. Had a situation kind of like Bemidji, but different, though. And now they're going to be playing Fort Hays. I think you got to like Fort Hays, but Western was a pretty good team last year. I mean, so that's a pretty good game, don't you think?
Hey, Witt, I apologize. Were you throwing that to anyone in particular? I was
no, and apparently no one's looking to take it.
Silence is compliance. Whatever you say.
I thought my mic wasn't working for a moment.
Well,
so let's get on to the pickup.
Stay here for a second. I'll explain to you. There's someone watching who caught my attention. No, I was going to say the Central Washington San Diego game is very interesting for some of the reasons that Ferg pointed out. I think Colorado Mesa actually beat San Diego last year, so a lot of reasons for Central Washington to think that they can hang in that game.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of intrigued by. Findlay Truman's intriguing. I actually like Bowie at Lenore-Ryan. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Saginaw Valley, they roughed up Winona last year, but now they're going to have a redshirt freshman likely making his first college start in that game for the Cardinals. There's a lot to watch there. This is a good undercard, really good undercard. I
think, Lenore-Ryan has obviously a long history playing CIAA opponents, but I don't think they have much history with Bowie State. So that's going to be a fun one.
Well, the playoff game.
Yeah,
the playoff game.
That's true. But they don't have a whole lot of history with each other. But I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go ahead and let's go to the Super 7 if we could here, guys. And by the way, let's talk for a moment about how everyone did a week ago. So we've got Chuck, you were 5-2. Witt was 5-2. Tony, you were 4-3. That Mars Hill one got you.
Yeah.
Ferg, you were 5-2. Now, Justin, you were not here for the pick, so now is your big moment. So, guys, I will document the picks like I did before, and what we will do right from this spot is we will go ahead and we will start off with IUP at Ashland. I like this one. Ferg, I'm going to let you start off. IUP Ashland. What do you got, buddy?
Man, this is like such a great way to start this and the kind of recent history with these two teams.
Yep.
IUP last week was sort of my bounce back team, so I got to ride with the Crimson Hawks.
Yep. Okay, then. Ferg goes with the Crimson Hawks. I kind of figured you were going to have to feel devoted to that, Ferg, and I can't blame you. Yeah. Tony, how are you seeing this one?
Ashland was my bounce back team last week, so The Eagles it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Ferg and I'll have to bet a candy bar or something on it.
I'm more of a bottle of wine.
Yeah,
person.
I figured as much.
Okay, Coach Poe. Coach Poe, you've had 2 weeks to think about games because you didn't have to pick last week. You better do
I know.
good.
I know. Hey, look, we're gonna start this year off right, guys. So if you want to do well this
Is
year,
there any
just-
way?
just-
Can
so
we
you're
have
gonna
side
pick
bets
Ash?
on
I
you
got
starting off the year good?
well, shoot, we should. I would
Kiss
bet
of
against
death.
me too.
Kiss
But,
of death.
exactly. No, I'm gonna take Ashland in this one, guys.
Okay.
Sorry, Tony.
No, I get you. I get you.
I think we're both going to win. So why
There we go,
why be
baby.
sorry?
I like it.
So I know that Ashland loves me from a few years ago when they decided to tweet me and all that good stuff, and we had a fun time with it. I'm Ashland is a team that I think is a rebound squad, and I think they're gonna do their thing. I like Ashland in this one. Chuck, what do you have? Ashland or IUP at this point?
Well, I like this game. I really do. You guys that have picked Ashland have really good reasons for it. I am very tempted, but I'm kind of with Ferg here. I sort of think IUP is going to bounce back in a big way this year, and I'm going to go with the Crimson Hawks here.
Okay. Moving right along. We got Cal, PA, and Charleston. Charleston kind of rolled last week. Ferg, I'm going to start off with you again. How are you seeing this one?
Well, yeah, Charleston won 38-7 against Livingstone yesterday, and looked pretty good. They have a lot of experience coming back, and when you match that up against a Cal game, it's going to be an awesome game. I'm going to go with Charleston, though. I think it might be a bit of an upset with the way Cal has and what they also have coming back too. But I'm going to go with the Golden Eagles at home.
Okay, Golden Eagles it is. How about we're going to switch it up? I'm going to have Chuck next. Chuck, what do you got on this one?
I'm gonna put a little faith in Charleston here. I think that they had a really good team last year. A lot of that team is back. I think that they're definitely the team to beat in the Mountain East. They're at home. I'm gonna put a little faith in them. I'm gonna go with the Golden Eagles to win this one.
Fair enough. Coach Poe, once again,
Golden
your
Eagles,
crack
baby.
staff has had weeks to prepare for this. What do you have?
Golden Eagles, baby.
There we go. Tony, I'm listening.
Yeah, I was a little down on Cal. 7-3 is not what you expect out of them on an annual basis, but I mean they did lose really to the better teams on their schedule last year, and they bring a lot of guys back. And I still am suspicious of Charleston, and maybe that's not fair to them, but just it sounds like I'm going to be the only contrarian here, so that's fun for me. So let's go with Cal. Hopefully they don't do to me what Mars Hill did to me last week.
Cal has some talent offensively.
They do.
But you know what? I like what Charleston's got going. I'm going to take Charleston in this one.
I don't like the fact that Cal hasn't played, but I'm going to stick with them anyway.
I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Wayne State coming off a one-sided victory. Receiving votes, or they're right there in our poll. Against Jack Strand, one of the top quarterbacks in D2, and the MSU Moorhead Dragons. Interesting matchup. Chuck, I'm starting with you. Put you on the spot right away, Chuckster.
Well, Moorhead was my team to watch in the Northern Sun when Poe and I did the the preseason show that he and I did. This is my team to watch. But I think Wayne State is really good, and I think that they win this one.
Okay, Tony, how do you see in this?
Yeah, I like Wayne State here too. I think Moorhead is maybe going to turn some heads this year, but they might still be a year away from really being a contender. And Wayne State's kind of made that ascent over the last year or two.
Ferg, you're a fantasy D2 guy. I think I'm smelling Ferg taking the home team. Am I right, Ferg?
Yeah, you are right. I mean, this is a game that's actually been close the last couple of years, and so you would think that a Moorhead team that's got some experience now should be able to to finally steal one. And them being at home really, I think, helps too. As much respect as I have for Wayne State, I'm going to take Moorhead in an upset here.
Coach Poe, for all I know, that might be a dragon right behind you on your wall. But are you taking the Coach Poe Dragons, or are you going with Wayne State?
Wayne State on the road, Witt, and it's a crab. Come on, man.
It looks like a daggum dragon, but anyway.
For somebody who knows food as well as you do, they should know a Maryland blue crab when they see one.
I don't eat stuff like that, but anyway, that's almost healthy.
No,
He's
you're
too
missing
far
out.
from the coast.
That
He's too far
is-
from the coast for that.
Chuck is 100% right.
Can you have those with hot wings? So maybe I'll try them. Wayne State is a team that I think could very well win the Northern Sun. I just said that. That's right. And so I have them winning in a hard-fought battle up at Moorhead. UTPB at CSU Pueblo. I think maybe the most interesting game of this week. Tony, what do you got?
Yeah, this is an interesting one too. I actually Permian Basin was my flyer pick to win the Lone Star last year, and they delivered for me. And yet, I don't know. Coming into this one, there's something about Pueblo that they got a lot coming back from last year. They brought in some additional transfer talent. They're going to move the ball. They did pretty well last week against South Dakota Mines, I believe it was, and. I don't know. At home, the only thing that is, I guess I wonder, are they looking ahead to the rest of their schedule? I mean, they do have Grand Valley coming in the week after that too. So, I don't know. I'm gonna go with Pueblo in this one at home.
Coach Poe, in the game of whoever gets to 50 wins.
Yeah, that's
who do you like in this one?
Ooh, this is intriguing. I like UTPB on this one. I think they're primed to go on the road, play in a tough environment, and come out with a victory. So UTPB.
Berg?
What a fun matchup. And why is this a fun matchup? Because I actually, in the fantasy quarter, have a wide receiver for each team on in this game. So that's what makes this one really interesting to me.
Watch.
Yeah, so I want them both to go to 50. But this is a really tough matchup. UTPB is a team on the rise. And they're I think both teams were trying to figure a few things out, but they also had, they had opponents that were really overmatched. So I don't know how much you really sort of read into that, I feel like. In a case like this, I tend to go with the home team. So I'm going to go with Pueblo.
Chuckster, how do you see in it?
I'm having a hard time getting a read on this one.
Me too.
I'm not really sure what I think of Pueblo. I think they're a team that might really challenge in the RMAC this year, or they might still be several steps behind. The two teams that we think are kind of at the top of that league, which was kind of the situation last year. I think that Pueblo has probably really closed the gap to the top of the RMAC, but I think Permian Basin's just going to be a little bit more battle tested at this point, and I think this is a tough road test for them. But I'm going to go with the Falcons to win this one.
I've gone back and forth on this one quite a bit. I think Pueblo has a chance to compete for the league title, but right now they need to beat somebody of this caliber, because last year, each time I was thinking about them, they kind of didn't answer the bell in that game.
Yeah.
So let's see. I'm going to take UTPB here, but I think this is going to be a heck of a ball game. I can't wait to see it. UMC Pembroke, and we've got Fayetteville State. Ferg, we're starting with you. What do you got here, my friend?
Well, we kind of know about Pembroke. And Fayetteville State doesn't really have a whole lot in terms of changes from what I could tell from last year. This is typically a very intense game. These are two head coaches in Mark Hall and Richard Hayes that really have gone at each other over the years on the field. You know, I think this game is also going to be really close. I think it's going to be another low scoring affair. I think that, based on what happened last year with Fayetteville State sort of losing at the very end, I think that they're going to bounce back this year in this game. So I'm going to take the Broncos and kind of like hold my breath on this one.
Tony, how do you see this one?
I'm going to take the Braves and hold my breath on this one. I think they underperformed last week, and this is a great example where we don't want that week one recency bias to cloud things. I mean, even though that was a close game last year that they won on a field goal on the last play of the game, they outgained Fayetteville by a decent amount in that game. And they probably played about as lousy as they could have last week. And, I think they'll make that week 1 to week 2 jump. And for Fayetteville, this is kicking off the season for them. So I'll take that Pembroke's got that extra week of tape under their belt to figure out what they got to work on.
Chuck, how do you see this one?
It's a close one. I remember watching that game from last year. I think they ended up bumping that to a Friday afternoon because of weather, and I had to beg for early check into a hotel room so I could watch that game. I could kind of see this one being a similar type of affair, and I'm going to go with Pembroke to win a very close one once again.
Coach Poe, your crack staff, what have they come up with? What did the computer say?
Well, I think this is another, I think, intriguing game this weekend. I think you look at two teams, Fayetteville State, who I think should be pretty good this year, and Pembroke, who I think is going to be much improved from last year. I think the fact that UNC Pembroke played in week 0 has a game under their belt will be the difference in this game. So I'm going to take UNC Pembroke.
Since Pembroke is the team that I picked as my bounce back just a week ago, I'm going to stay with them here. I thought that they played wing it tough. So I'm going to stay with them in this one. Angelo State at Emporia State. We kind of alluded to this one earlier. Chuck, what do you got on this one?
I feel like I might be alone on this one, but I'm going to go with Emporia. I know Angelo, they're going to be on the bounce back after a tough loss at Fort Hays, and Emporia might not have the same kind of defense that Fort Hays does, but I think Emporia is going to go to I think they're going to show a few things this weekend. I like the offense that they showed this past week, and I think that they're going to have a really tough challenge here with the Angelo defense, but I like the Hornets at home.
Well, we've got Gunnar Gundy, Mike Gundy's son, who had transferred on over, got a shot to win the job, the starting job, and did win it.
Yeah, not a bad debut. Not great, but pretty good.
Yeah, Ferg's probably already in on picking him up in fantasy if I know Ferg well enough. Ferg feels good enough about his team that he's not even worried about it. So, Ferg, are the inclinations to go with somebody who might be a big fantasy player like Emporia here in Gunnar Gundy? Is that where you're going, or are you staying with the Texas team with Angelo?
So, well, I didn't pick him up. Somebody else picked him up, and I was okay with that because I knew I was going to go straight to David Wright III. So
fair enough. That's a good call. That's a good call.
Yeah. And I think with Emporia, this is kind of what they do, right? Like they have quarterbacks that year in and year out can really excel at a high level. I'm a little concerned less about Angelo's defense and more about Angelo's offense. And I'm, really just kind of wondering if, the first game was sort of a preview of some of the offensive struggles that they may have against teams that have either a pretty decent defense or enough of an offense that they can kind of like boat race them. And I think you kind of saw that here with Emporia and what they had set up against Washburn. So, Chuck, you're not alone here. I'm going to go with the Hornets as well. I'm just a little concerned about where Angelo is right now.
Poe, are you the only one I haven't hit with this yet?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to take Angelo on the road in this one. And I guess Tony, you have to go next too. But
Yep.
I'm gonna take Angelo in this one, guys. I think I don't know. I think last week got him ready and on the road again. Tough environment. Let's go.
Okay. Tony, what's your stance on this one, buddy?
Hey, I'm surprised that Chuck thought he was going to be alone with Emporia, because I've kind of been selling on Angelo coming into this season anyway. Just didn't get the vibe that they were heading in the direction that would equate to them having a playoff caliber season. Doesn't mean they won't, but that's just not the feel I was getting. And after kind of figuring things out during the halftime with some adjustments in the Turnpike tussle the other day, I think Emporia is ready to go run it to 2-0. So I like the Hornets here as well.
I'm kind of expecting an Angelo squad, who I think is very well coached, good defensive squad. I think they're going to rebound this week. I don't think they start off 0-2. I see them finding a way at Emporia State. And then we've got the last game here. Bemidji State, we talked about earlier, and Minnesota State. Two teams that at face value look like they're heading in different directions after 1 week. Do we continue the overreaction, or do we think maybe Bemidji is the better team? Tony, I'm going to start with you first on this one. How do you see it?
I think that depends on how we want to characterize overreactions, right, Witt? I mean, we saw Minnesota against a Northwest team that, okay, we were going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they were going to come back off of last year and look a little bit more like the old Northwest, and it doesn't seem like they did. So while Minnesota State was impressive, I mean, guess how impressive was that?
Sure.
And then, with Bemidji, hey, was it just, first time in a while with a new quarterback? Defense still played pretty decent, but against a team that's, hasn't been strong in the run game offensively for a couple of years now. So I don't know if it's an overreaction or if it's more of just an on-plane, kind of assessment to say, hey, I'll take the Mavericks at home. They can run the ball.
Ferg, what are you thinking, my friend?
In Hoffner, we trust.
They did okay for you last week like that.
Yeah, I was very pleased with what Minnesota State did. Start that game off. I mean, they just sort of punched Northwest in the mouth early, and I mean, they just kind of just went at them. And man, I'm just not there with Bemidji right now. I'm just not. So,
Chuck, what are your thoughts, Chuck?
Well, recency effect and what I saw up close and personal with my own eyes is going to influence me a whole lot. So I acknowledge that. But Minnesota State looked like a team that I'm probably not going to pick against very much this year, and I'm certainly not going to do it here. So Mavs.
Coach Poe, what did the computers say on this one?
I think it's good. It's a good one. Minnesota State, I think at home. I think they're just a better team right now than Bemidji. Bemidji still has to prove some things to me. I think they're just not at the level Minnesota State is.
Bemidji, I think, is going to be able to play and be right there and not have any issue playing with the Mavs at the line of scrimmage. Bemidji is very good, very physical. I'm concerned about the Bemidji offense I have seen, whether it was in the playoffs last year or what I, just saw. And the things just aren't really clicking right at the moment. I think the tendency is just to go ahead and say the Mavs are going to roll in this one. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game at half, but I think the Mavs are going to be able to go ahead and win the day. I think this should be a hard-fought contest, but I do like Minnesota State as well.
I think one of the things about this game that is a little concerning is you look at what Bemidji did on offense yesterday, I should say, but they couldn't finish drives. I mean, they had to settle for field goal attempts. And is that really going to be enough, or are they going to, maybe look at the film and come back and figure out some different ways to get to the end zone? Because I think that's going to be, and I don't think the issue is going to be them moving the ball up and down the field. I think the issue is just going to be, can they when they get, to the red zone, can they finish, or they get stalled out? in this game.
Sure. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. But Chuck, what as we kind of finish up our show, tell our viewers a little bit about about the programming we have at large here.
Well, this past week was our kind of first official game week where we kind of dropped content for all of our conferences and everything else that we're doing. So you saw written columns on the GSC, the Lone Star, Great American, the SAC, PSAC, and then we had all of our podcasts, some of which have a completely new look this year. Tony's doing the GLIAC Weekly with your help. It was a great show this past week. You guys got that off to a really nice start. Miles and Antonio are going to run with RMAC Weekly. They kind of did their first show, and Witt, you kind of helped them get that stood up because Miles was coming back from some time away, but they're going to run with that, and looks like that'll be a great show. And of course, you've got Tom on board for NSIC Weekly. Poe and I are going to try to do as many podcasts on a national perspective as we can. It's not always going to be easy. And who did I forget? Oh, Chris Ferguson, CIAA columnist. We saw his first column of the year as well. So look for all these things dropping throughout every week. There's days where the front page gets updated 5-6 times because we have so much content dropping. So it's the time of the year where you just have to make sure you're hitting the website multiple times a day and look for all the latest info.
Chuck, how about do you have some questions, comments picked out, anything of that sort, my friend?
We have a few. There's been a lot of lively conversation in the chat, a lot of discussion about rankings, and already some healthy debate and discussion, and maybe a little bit of arguing going on there. So happy to see all you guys having those conversations. Not a lot that we need to bring into the convo at this point. A couple things though. Here's one question I did want to bring up because we kind of talked about this game a little bit. And I just think it's worth mentioning them again. Clark Atlanta, again, week one overreactions. This was a team that was winless last week, Ferg, but boy, what a way to get the season off to a start.
Clark is nothing more than Allen in Panthers clothing. I mean, and if you think about it that way, then it doesn't seem as far-fetched. But I think that Albany is probably still the team to beat in that conference right now. And I think there have been some struggles when David Wright went up against Albany, at least passing the ball. And so, it kind of goes back to what you mentioned. Like, can he, reduce the turnovers? Because if he can do that, then, hey, maybe so. But and then shootouts. I mean, that's the other thing. You can't be a shootouts week in and week out. That's just too much pressure as well. So there were other outlets that talked about how high Clark could be in terms of finishes. And Coach Keaton really didn't like that very much. Felt like it was a bit of a setup. But apparently he might have just been pulling our leg. So yeah, I think that they're certainly going to be up there in the mix in the top half. Yep.
All right. A couple others, and we're just going to do a couple really quick ones. Here's a comment from our friend Brad. The Maverick scarf, I knew you would notice. So that was a gift to me from our friend Brad, also known as Laker on the message board. One of the highlights of the weekend, and I mean that sincerely, one of the highlights of the weekend, meeting so many different people in both Maryville and Pittsburgh. We've interacted quite a bit over the years, and I know you know Brad and have met him quite a few times, and it was definitely one of the highlights of my weekend to meet him, and now I can call him a friend. So that was a gift to me. So definitely had to make sure that goes up on the wall, and we might be putting that up again later in the year as the Mavericks celebrate a Northern Sun Conference championship. We'll see. So let me pull up another one here from Brad because it's going to lay up or intro the next one. I said, someone has hacked the site. Some of you may have seen some comments in there that look alarming. Everything's okay. We just had a visitor, someone who is watching. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of warning. There's some language in this post I'm going to pull onto the screen. So if any kids are watching, just be aware. Our dear friend Brandon is watching. I know what he was attempting to say here is like, as the great Richard Pryor once said, I'm not dead yet. And we'll try to keep it as PG as possible. You can read the rest for yourselves.
I think
no,
he was I got he was if I know him, he saw we were on. He was like, I gotta get something on here as quick as I can while I'm paying attention to this deal right now. So I'm all about it.
yeah, he's like, I gotta get a comment here before these guys put me to sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're so happy to see Brandon watching the show. This was kind of his baby. Witt, I know you were really instrumental in standing this up several years ago, but Brandon really kind of ran with it.
Yep.
And, it really renewed his passion in a way I hadn't seen in a long time for what we were doing. You're doing this show and the production value that you see and a lot of things that we do with the show, all the different segments involving coaches, all the different stuff that we were doing, the videos, that was all Brandon's talent. And his very, very long hours put into this and a lot of hard work. So, I'm happy to see that he was able to join us and watch for a little bit. And
Absolutely.
Brandon, we love you, and we mean that sincerely. And a lot of people who are watching do too. And that's a really nice way to close the show, guys.
Oh, yeah.
So
Love you, B.
to be able to close this by
Absolutely.
saying good night, Brandon. Kick ass in therapy as much as you can. Everybody
Miss
here
you,
loves
buddy.
you so much. All right, that's it, everybody.
Thanks,
We'll see
everybody.
ya.